I was the type of person who was pretty risk averse. I wanted to be 100% certain before I dove into anything. I hated the feeling of being uncomfortable and the feeling of unknown. For me to leave and have no job lined up didn't feel like an option. But I'm talking to you right now, that's basically what I did just a few months ago, and it was a huge decision that I had to make for myself. I spent the last decade climbing the corporate ladder at companies like Deloitte, Slack, and Asana, where I worked in consulting and product marketing, making over $200,000 a year, and I was working probably 20 or 30 hours a week at the end of it. It took me a long time to come to the decision to leave, but I knew at the end of the day, it was something that I had to do for myself if I wanted to live the life I wanted, one of freedom and one without regrets. I hope that by sharing my story, I remember the day that I dialed into a Zoom meeting, one with my manager that was supposed to be just a normal one-on-one. But instead, she unleashed feedback saying that I needed to be more team first and not me first. She then proceeded to get increasingly angry over the call, while I was getting more upset, ending the call in tears. She never apologized or even checked in to see how I was feeling. It was at that moment that despite my best efforts, none of the work I did really mattered. That was my rock bottom, and it took me years of feeling unsatisfied to finally make a bigger change. The first few years of my career were actually pretty fun. I graduated from Cal Poly and I had already done 2 internships with Deloitte Consulting, and I felt really proud of actually getting the internships. And when I started full-time, I got to travel Monday through Thursday across the United States. I got to meet different people and expense everything on my corporate card, which again, being 21 and being able to go out and try new restaurants was pretty fun, and was pretty much living that typical. Then at one point, I wanted to try something new. That got me a referral into the company. Tech was booming and Slack was one of those hot Silicon Valley companies. So I really got an ego boost when I told people that I worked at Slack in the marketing department. More than that, I actually really loved working at Slack. I loved the mission, the product, people. It felt like everyone there was really passionate about what they did. It wasn't until COVID hit when I started to burn out at work. I was working all the time, crazy hours, because I told myself there wasn't anything else better to do. And that's when I hit my first quarter life crisis. I really want to be doing this for the rest of my life. I started to question why I was working so hard and what was it for. But rather than listen to that voice, I ignored it, thinking that the next job would be better and I just needed to make a little change. So instead of searching for a deeper meaning of why I was feeling this way, I decided to search for another new job at another tech company. If you were listening at all to the beginning of this video, it didn't really help. And honestly, 3 months into the new job, I wanted to quit right then and there, but I had expenses. I had just moved to New York and I was paying $2,700 for my own 1-bedroom apartment, and I felt stuck. I didn't want to change my lifestyle, but at the same time, I didn't know what else I could do. I started reaching out to people on LinkedIn who had interesting career path. I was searching for product marketers who had done something else and pivoted their career. I talked to one person on LinkedIn who started their own corporate events business. She had told me through the conversation that she found clarity in working with a life coach. So that's what I started doing. I used the same life coach, and this is what I wrote in the pre-coaching worksheet I was given before we started coaching. It asked what was the most upsetting part in my life right now. I said, currently my biggest stressor is work. However, I also think this is tied to financial stability. I'm feeling really unfulfilled and unheard in my current work environment. When I think about leaving though, I get scared that I'll leave a stable job during a recession and that all my hard money will dwindle away. I was the type of person who was pretty risk averse. I wanted to be 100% certain before I dove into anything. I hated the feeling of being uncomfortable and the feeling of unknown. For me to leave and have no job lined up didn't feel like an option. But I'm talking to you right now, that's basically what I did just a few months ago, and it was a huge decision that I had to make for myself. I thought about a few things that really mattered in my life. It came down to not living with regrets, working on something truly meaningful and meaningful to me, not anyone else's definition of what meaningful means to them. And then finally, this mindset I adopted around knowing that I can figure it out no matter what happens, whether that be getting a new job, full-time job to pay the bills, or getting part-time jobs to cover me and get some cash. While I'm exploring, I knew that I could figure it out. See, the thing is, when I wanted to quit, that was almost 2 years ago, and I didn't. I powered through. I used my corporate job as a way to fund my side experiments that I was working on, figuring out what I was interested in, what I wanted to do next. And while I wanted to leave, I also used my corporate job to save up a 6-month emergency fund. The thing is, I have a mortgage, I have rent, I have expenses from living in an expensive city, and so 6 months felt comfortable for me to make the leap. And before I left my job, I made a list of all of the different expenses I had and tallied them all up, and then added on a little buffer to make sure that I can get through the next few months, even if I didn't have any work or jobs lined up. Now, I'm just at the beginning of my journey. I wanted to share where I am at today, so hopefully it can inspire you all to take the leap too, even though you might not have 100% certainty that things will work out, and ultimately help you figure out what you want to do in your life moving forward.